Okay, so the letters business has really been the anchor that's holding Australia Post back. Despite these reforms and despite the fact that letters will only be delivered once every 2 days, will it still be enough to stop the letters losing money?
No, it won't be. The letter loss and the decline both in volume, we've lost 800 million letters since 2018 and they're not coming back. Whilst we're putting up the price of a stamp with an application to ACCC, and that will obviously increase revenue, neither of those will be enough to actually stop the decline. It's inevitable. It will continue to lose money. What we're trying to do is shore up those declines and allow us to make sure that we can focus on investing in our parcel business, at the same time creating and continuing to have good jobs for our frontline team members and recognising the changing needs of the communities we serve, which is focusing much more on e-commerce and parcels. We just had the past weekend, Cyber Weekend, 2 weekends ago, sorry, and we had a record 7.4 million parcels just in that weekend, up 3.9%. So whilst we see the economic headwinds reported, certainly when it comes to cyber, people are clicking online. And whether that's sort of calm before the storm of Christmas, it augurs well for the growth of that business over the next decade.
Because the one thing for your business customers is having a robust parcels business, a robust delivery business is essential for them. So if you have a letters business that's holding back the overall business, that they'd be fearful could compromise your parcels delivery business as well.
That's correct. And the parcel business is an openly competitive business, globally competitive. It's about 85% of our revenue these days. We're competing with global multinationals, local private equity, local players as well. So it's extremely competitive, which is why we need to have the ability to invest in that business, because we need to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to volume. We've made significant investments over the last couple of years. It really stood us very strongly in the last peak season. And again, coming up to this season, we're seeing our network being able to flex really well to manage that volume. But it is capital intensive, which is why we need to invest in that business, both the physical network as well as the technology. And as you rightly say, the mail business has been an anchor holding that back. The reforms today help us unleash that anchor to a certain degree and refocus the network to drive those efficiencies.
But it also means you don't have to go back to your shareholder, to the federal government, where there's politics always at play, for them to hand over hundreds of millions or tens of millions of dollars to you to invest as capital into that parcels business.
Absolutely. The government has no appetite to hand over money to us that can be better used to build hospitals or do other things with. But we have seen, and we're not alone in this, other jurisdictions, other post offices around the world. The Royal Mail lost $2 billion last year. Canada Post lost $750 million. We're not in that boat yet, which is why we've spent the last 2 years really talking to the government, talking to all stakeholders about the urgency of granting us the first phase of reform so we can start to take those steps to minimise those losses, invest in our parcel business and create that strong foundation on a pathway to profitability.
Was there even a thought as you went through this reform process that you might stop delivering letters altogether?
Well, no, we've got a universal postal obligation as part of our global conventions.
But I'm wondering, but surely that would have been one of the scenarios. If we stopped altogether, what would happen?
Well, if we stopped altogether, then I think we'd have the public beating down our door. It would also mean the loss of tens of thousands of jobs, which obviously no one has an appetite for, nor should we. But the great thing is that given the strength of our parcel business, given the range of other services we provide through our postal network, like Bank at Post and others, we actually have a good foundation to build on. So our post-26 strategy is a glass half full strategy, not half empty. But as we've said from the beginning, there's things that we can do within our own business, manage costs, drive efficiency, innovation. But because of the fact that we are regulated, there are things that are only the gift of the government to implement. And we're happy to report in the last week that they've stepped up to the plate to do that after a decade of many discussions. But it's up to us now to execute really well, continue to build the trust in the government and other stakeholders that we can still deliver a high level of service, and that will then lead to the next phase of consultation around what more we need to do to ensure Australia Post is viable.
But at some point in the future, the last letter will be delivered. Now, how far is that off? Because it's a matter of how far do you go before you say, sorry, we're chopping it off now? Where is that in your mind?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting question. If we look at trends and global forecasting, some would say within the decade the last letter may be delivered. It was only less than 10 years ago that we thought would never see the end of cash, but how many people actually carry cash in their wallets? And I think what COVID taught us is that things accelerate terrifically fast because of that pandemic, and some of those habits have stayed. So we will see the end of letters at some stage. The only commitment I can make is that we will deliver that last letter.